Now, you may be wondering, what does all of this talking about mistakes have to do with a podcast that focuses on arts, learning, and SEL? Well, there's the key right there, SEL, because our role as teachers has been evolving, hasn't it? And we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're creating safe learning communities in our classroom, and that definitely is what we've been addressing last episode with some of the mistakes and today with the communication with families. So let's not waste another moment and get started. What do the arts have to do with learning in SEL? Oh, so much. Join me as we explore the depths of how these things come together through SEAL, social, emotional, artistic learning. We'll look at the mindset, the methods, and the integrations that make SEAL so effective. So plug yourself in. It's time to get inspired. Welcome, everybody, to the Inspired Classrooms podcast. I'm Elizabeth Peterson, and I'm your host. Today, we're talking about mistakes that even the most caring teachers make when it comes to family communication. And just like I said in the last episode, I'll say it again now, I am wrapping myself right into this with the rest of you because I certainly make these mistakes as well. I don't think anyone is immune to some of these mistakes. Now, the last episode, we looked at some mistakes that are made within the classroom. If you haven't listened to that, make sure you do. The mistakes were not connecting with each of your students, not fixing your face, and also forgetting to let students know that they're doing a great job. And I think it's worth listening to that episode because it will give you some food for thought and give you some time to reflect on how you do in terms of making or not making those mistakes, and how, of course, you can do better, and myself as well, how I can do better as well. Now, this episode, we're going to look at mistakes that even some caring teachers will make with family communication. I got nothing else to say. Let's just get into it, shall we? The first one is emailing a parent instead of calling them. Now, let's face it, there's so much that we should be communicating with families and parents. Maybe there's behavior or grades that need to be discussed. And the problem with email, the problem with text in general, is that it can the intention can get lost in the translation, or I should say in the interpretation, how someone else reads it. Because remember, when you email someone or you text them and they're reading your words with their emotions. So here's what that means. If I'm in a bad mood and I get a text from someone and it says something, it could be something really simple, but I could misread the intention behind what is said because I'm in a bad mood. And that can certainly happen with parents and families of our students, especially if they know that their kid struggles in school. And so if you're communicating some of those struggles with the parent and you do it over email, they may already be on the defensive. And you're not there to explain to them. You're not there with your kind facial expression and in turn your kind tone of voice to help explain what is actually happening. Now, I've done this in the past for students. I've had plenty of times when I just wanted to email the situation and kind of get it off my plate, but I couldn't exactly think of what to say that wouldn't get messed up in their interpretation of it. So I just called. And ultimately, I know in so many of those instances, going ahead and picking up the phone was actually a better way to do things. It got whatever the situation was, it got resolved quickly. We could have a back and forth and really understand where each other is coming from and kind of get to the bottom of what's happening in the situation. What are your thoughts on calling parents? I know this can actually be a real stressor for some teachers, and I can totally understand that. But the more you do it, the easier it actually becomes, and you can actually become known as the teacher who has an open communication and a kind, caring heart, which is really a great thing to be able to have. All right, the next one is... Oh, you know what though? No, I need to say one more thing about this. If it's a major thing that you need to contact your parent about, you might want to alert your principal or your supervisor, or even ask a colleague. Sometimes those additional people might have the words that you can say. That happens to me all the time. Just the other day, I was emailing a parent about some grade information, and I just happened to mention it to my next door neighbor, colleague, friend, teammate, and she just had some of the greatest little phrases and stuff, and it was just so helpful to get me started on what I wanted to say in the email or on the phone call. And so having someone have your back too is really important, especially if it's a major thing. So alerting your principal or supervisor can be so helpful. They might actually also have some background knowledge about the family situation or just some valuable input. And if you do need to email, making it vague can be really a helpful thing. Just saying that you want to set up a time to chat on the phone so that the parent isn't surprised. That's always a good way to kind of segue into an important conversation on the phone. All right, so that kind of brings me to the second mistake, and that is only contacting parents with the negative. You know what I mean, right? Someone does something in your classroom, you need to address it, and it could very well be the first time you've made contact with the family. So the idea behind this is to be able to set a foundation with positivity at the beginning of the school year, or even if it's the middle of the year. I would even venture to say, if you can sense that you have a student that you're going to need to be in contact with their family, I would go ahead and contact the family with some positives, even if you know that the next day or in a couple of days, you're going to have to follow up with some of the struggles that the student is having. Because that's how you start to build relationships and can kind of set that foundation so that you can address things together. So this is definitely one of those positive practices of a SEAL teacher, and something that we talk about a lot inside the SEAL teacher training course. If that's something that you're interested in, I'll put the link in the show notes so that you can check out more. All right, so those are the two mistakes that even the most caring teachers can make when it comes to family communication. We've got emailing a parent instead of just going ahead and picking up that phone, and also contacting parents with only the negative. Oh, that can really set yourself up. All right, so what are your thoughts? Make sure you go ahead over to Instagram or Facebook, DM me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these mistakes over the last couple episodes. And until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe as we continue talking about arts, learning, and SEL through SEAL, social, emotional, artistic learning. If you want to learn more, go to theinspiredclassroom.com. My name's Elizabeth Peterson, reminding you to get inspired so that you can be inspiring to your students.